Hello. So first things first, I know, I know the sound quality is not great, and I apologize for that. Believe me, it is frustrating as a creator, as someone who uploads videos on a regular basis, that the sound issue is not great. In fact, I'm raising my voice right now so that it could be at least somewhat audible. So people might wonder why I bother uploading videos when they're like this. The truth is, if I want to talk about a particular subject at a particular time, I don't know how long the sound issue is going to last. So I upload the video anyway, simply as a record for myself. And I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard to hear. I just hope people can hear this at least to understand that I'm aware of the problem. So why am I having this problem? Well, last year basically my computer got hacked into, and I feel that has had some permanent damage on some of the inner workings, including the sound system. I'm talking directly into the screen. It's 100%. I don't know what else to do, and I'm simply not in a financial position right now to afford either a new laptop or headphones. And when I will do that. So I felt it was necessary to explain that. I want to talk about the situation we have at the moment. Very complicated situation. The results of this election are quite interesting, to say the least. I came across a description earlier, and if I could just get that, this really sums up what the situation currently is. Someone had posted this. Clive from Hemel Hempstead really sums this up nicely. How strange this election is. So the Conservatives won but lost. Labour lost but won. The SNP won and lost in Scotland but still won. And the Conservatives won in Scotland but lost. UKIP lost, but because of Brexit, they've already won. The winner, Mrs. May, is being told to resign because she didn't win, and she won't because she won, even though she lost. That's Clive from Hemel Hempstead contributed that to Radio 5 Live, and I think it sums up the situation quite nicely. Um, in the last few days, there has been actually unusual for a general election. There's been no major cabinet reshuffles, and I think that's because Mrs. May's position is greatly weakened. So the results themselves, the latest are that it is 318 seats for the Conservatives, 262 for Labour, 12 for the Liberal Democrats, 35 for the Scottish National Party, 10 for the DUP, 1 for the Greens, and I believe there's 18, 17 or 18 from other parties. UKIP didn't get anything. Applied Comru 4. So the story of this election is that the two big traditional parties have actually made gains, but because May was coming into this election with such a prophecy of winning, and it was a huge gamble for her, and now she hasn't lost, but she certainly hasn't won. Um, Apparently, the Chancellor had a furious face-to-face dialogue with her, in which he confrontation, I should say, in which he basically confronted her about rumors that she was going to remove him from the number two place. There hasn't been any reshuffle. That's significant because I think it shows that May is in a weakened position. What there has been, however, is her two advisors have been dropped. Um, Owen Jones, the left wing commentator, said that this is Carter's for May because she is basically throwing them under the bus. Make of that what you will. One thing I want to focus on is the speculation that the Tories are going to be propped up by the DUP. Being from Northern Ireland, I do find it interesting that the province is now finally getting some notice from the rest of the country. Um, I'll say from the outset, I'm not a supporter of the DUP. I'm a centrist. I find some of their opinions to be very unpleasant. The way they describe gay people is very polarizing and downright cruel at some points. Um, I'm opposed to them on their views on climate change. I'm opposed to them on a range of other issues. Um, I am British. The DUP is a unionist party. Um, a few things to point out. Firstly, there's only 10 of them, so this is not a formal coalition. In fact, talks are still to go ahead between Arlene Foster and whether Theresa May herself or James Brockenshire. So this is not going to be a setup like the Lib Dems in 2010. It's not going to be a coalition government. Another thing that a lot of people on the mainland, especially on the left, have been really focusing on the regressive aspects of the DUP, especially on gay rights. Ruth Davidson is concerned about that being the Scottish Conservative leader. Apparently, she's been given assurances that gay rights won't be compromised. And I have to agree with the Conservative commentator I saw earlier. I would be very surprised if issues like abortion and gay rights come up before Parliament again. I think those issues are being covered. I think the main issues the DUP is going to push is on Brexit. Despite their Eurosceptic background, they actually are likely to take a softer approach to May because the last thing they want is a hard border with the Republic of Ireland. Why? Because they're part of the power sharing agreement in Northern Ireland. The situation in Northern Ireland is very fragile right now. Um, I would say, though, that Mrs. May needs to be very careful not to give the impression that she is basically in bed with the DUP. Why? Because Sinn Féin will point out that this compromises a Good Friday Agreement. Being from Northern Ireland, I am quite concerned about the situation. I was quite pleased with the results in Great Britain. I'm pleased that the Scottish National Party lost seats because I am 100% opposed to Scottish independence. But I am concerned about the possibility of a return to violence in Northern Ireland. I don't think it'll happen, but there is a very fragile situation there right now. I don't actually follow Ulster politics that closely, maybe not as closely as I should, but I do think that Sinn Féin will start to push this idea that May is basically compromising the Good Friday Agreement, and there may be some truth in that. Although I would say to those people on the left, I would point out, whatever you think of the DUP, they are a legal party. Now, in terms of the terrorist links, well, in the dark old days of the Troubles, it is true they had links to some loyalist paramilitaries. There's no getting around that. But that is the past, and I think that if you want to go down that line, well, Sinn Féin is basically the mouthpiece of the IRA. So what's the difference? Um, as someone pointed out, though, it would be like Jeremy Corbyn inviting Sinn Féin to prop up a Labour government. Now, Jeremy Corbyn, incidentally, is still arguing he can be Prime Minister. I think that's wishful thinking. Labour did make its biggest swing since 1945, even surpassing Tony Blair's 1997 showing. But the fact is, the Tories were the biggest party. That's just a fact. Um, I don't really relish the idea of another general election because I'm quite. I think I'm a political person, but I really think that people are tired now of elections. I really do. I think people want the dust to settle a little bit. So I'll leave with this thought. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm sure I will have more opinions on this as time goes on. But we have to remember this isn't a formal coalition. Now, May has said our friends in the DUP, she's been using very warm language. I think she needs to be a little bit careful to be a bit more neutral when she's talking about parties in Northern Ireland. Of course, she is the British Prime Minister. She believes in the United Kingdom. I'm British, I believe in the United Kingdom. But the situation in Northern Ireland is fragile, and she needs to bear that in mind. The DUP is obviously going to be pushing for money in terms of Brexit. I think that's going to be on the forefront a lot more than social issues. Um, in the end of the day, if you want to get down to it, um, people say that there's hypocrisy here from the Tories because they've spent months calling Corbyn a terrorist sympathiser. Well, it doesn't really change anything about Corbyn's history. Jeremy Corbyn was sympathetic, if not to the violence of the IRA, he was sympathetic to United Ireland. And the fact is, as a backbencher, as a backbencher, he went to Belfast for talks with um, senior figures in Sinn Féin whilst the IRA was attempting to assassinate the Prime Minister. This wasn't his role as Foreign Secretary or a diplomat. He was a backbench MP. So I don't really buy into the Labour victimhood narrative. Oh, stop calling Jeremy a terrorist sympathiser. Corbyn may not support the violence, but I do think his positions on terrorism are problematic. He has only been changing his tune in the last few weeks with this election. Look at the man's history, and I think it speaks volumes. And I know the left won't like me saying that, but I'm just telling you to look at the facts. That doesn't mean I support the DUP. It doesn't mean that I am you know, underplaying their links to loyalist paramilitaries. And the fact of the matter is, the loyalist paramilitaries did do some awful things in Ulster. There were vicious sectarian killings against Catholics for no other reason than being Catholics. We know of the Shankill Butchers, for example. Um, I'm under no illusions about any of that, but I do think that people need to calm down a little bit. This isn't a formal coalition. It's simply the DUP working with the Conservatives. And in the end of the day, is that really that surprising? They're both Conservative parties. Now, the Tories are more centrist on social issues overall, but they are both right wing parties. It's not like they're complete polar opposites. So, is it really that surprising? Um, and the way Jeremy Corbyn's talking, actually, he's talking about propping up a progressive alliance. Throughout the election, he was talking about wanting Labour to win. Now he's talking about making up the numbers to form a government. So that's a bit inconsistent. And I frankly think some Green positions are quite extreme. I believe their positions on immigration and crime are extreme. Um, a lot of things get thrown around in politics. In the end of the day, you believe in what you believe in. And I don't support the DUP. I don't agree with a lot of their views. But I also think people need to calm down. The worst days of the Troubles are over. The DUP today is a legal party, whether people like them or not. And that's democracy. So, people are saying they themselves are terrorists. That's nonsense. They do have a dubious history of, um, being cozy and being the mouthpiece, let's face it, for loyalist paramilitaries. But I think that is the past. It's not today. And you have to also consider that for years, the DUP and Sinn Féin, bitter enemies, have worked together. Now, if the DUP can work with Sinn Féin, why is it so controversial for them to be part of not even part of a British government, simply aiding the British government? Northern Ireland's part of the United Kingdom. They're a political party in Northern Ireland. So I think people are overblowing this. I understand if you're gay. I really do understand your concerns and anger at certain DUP views. I don't agree with those views. I don't agree with the creationist views, i.e., the New World theory. I don't agree with the climate change denials. Yeah, but I think people are looking too much into this. This was 10 MPs we're talking about. I don't think it makes a huge deal of difference.